Where in Boston do you live?
In Brighton.
Okay.
You're visiting from Cornell.
Okay.
Oh, they're still listening. And that's,
Okay. We're finishing up Daf Lamed Amid Beis, finishing up the fourth chapter. And we're actually today's Daf is supposed to be Daf Lamed. We're a drop ahead. It's good for us because on Shabbos we don't study together.
this founder was the first.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's that in Madison? Oh, he's in Calgary. I thought he was in Madison or something.
Maybe
Calgary. Okay.
One of the original college.
Yeah. Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's plus of our learning. Should have the base of English immediately. Okay, to find the place here on Lamed Amid Beis, we're holding at. Are we at Bayi Rabbah? Yeah, is that what that is? It's about 11 lines from the top. Correct? Okay, we're discussing a child taking over his father's sacrifices. Father was a Nazir, and he designated sacrifices. The father passed away, and the child wants to bring those sacrifices of his father. Now, there's a discussion how this works. It's a machlekes. Was he a Nazir together with the father, or was he only a Nazir afterwards? That's a machlekes. And whatever the case is, turns out that this halacha l'maisha misinai, a tradition that the child can take over those sacrifices, so as long as it wasn't specified that this is for a chatas, this is for an. If the money was left unspecified, then the child can take it over and bring those sacrifices. Rab has a question. Boy, Rab, what happens if the father left two sons and both of them are Nazirim? Now, you'd have to translate this according to one opinion that they were both Nazirim while he was alive, according to the other opinion, both Nazirim after he passed away. Whatever the case is, there's a question. Hilchasa Gemirin la called the Kadim, Bach adjusted, Megaleach. Does the halacha l'maisha misinai tell me that whoever's Naziris ends first will be the one to take over the father's sacrifices? Or is this a regular inheritance and they have to divide it? Does it go by who ends their Naziris first? Or is this an inheritance and it gets divided like all the rest of the inheritance? Boy, Rava has a question. Now they're medayik over here that it has to be Rav. A lot of times we don't know. It says Rava, is it Rava or Rabba? Because they would write in short and put an apostrophe. And it was hard to know if that's Rava or Rabba. Rabba is with the hey. Yehei Shmei Rabba. So Rava is following, Rava is younger. Rava is following Rabba's question. And his question goes like this. Let's say one of the sons was the firstborn. Now, firstborn, is supposed to get a double portion. One of them is not the firstborn, right? Only one firstborn. So, Hilchasa Gemirin la, v'hilkach le'bay geluche l'famay d'shakel. Since it's halacha l'maisha misinai, it's a tradition, it's a special rule. It doesn't go under the regular laws of inheritance that this firstborn should get double. Or Idilma Yerushi, or do we say that no? It does go under the laws of inheritance. Just like he takes a double portion. normally that's how he would take of this sacrifice as a double portion. We're talking about, at this point, we're talking about the money. He would take from that money, he could use a double portion of the money for his, you divide it into three. He takes two. Another one would take 1/3. I guess what the Gemara is asking is, does the tradition put this under the laws of inheritance, or is this an independent rule that's not associated with the laws of inheritance? What does this halacha l'maaseh misinai do? Does it keep it under its own category, or does it just apply the regular laws of inheritance to it?
If it's regular law of inheritance, he couldn't bring it as his carbon. I thought that was part of the issue here.
He can bring it as his carbon. Now the question
Either
is,
way,
yeah.
either way.
No, 1 second. What do you mean either way? Which way? Either you see what's happening
If
here is
this-
we're creating complications.
Right. The father was a Nazir when he had the animals set aside.
Right.
And he passes away. Now the son is a Nazir.
Right.
And while the animals are still eligible in terms of age,
Right.
his 30 days is up.
Right.
Right. So how does it change whether it's a special rule of inheritance or not?
So
Whether
in
he
that
can
case,
use those.
there's no question. He can use it.
He can.
He can, yes. The question comes in when there's another brother,
Okay.
which means that the money should be divided if it's regular inheritance. But he finished the Naziris first. So does he take it all or does he divide it? And then if there's two, if there's a firstborn, then that's the complication. That's okay. Vimtim Salaim Yerushahi. And if you say that it is an inheritance, Lafum the Shakel Megaleach, and according to what he's supposed to take, that would mean that we've just answered. Let's say we'll answer Rabba's question, the first question. That really gets divided into two. Let's say that. However, but maybe when it comes to the firstborn, maybe we can only answer one question, Rabba's question. There's two brothers. We don't say that the one that finishes his Naziris first takes the whole thing. No, it's an inheritance. So you divide it in half. But when it comes to the firstborn, that the firstborn should take the double portion, that maybe I only say that for mundane inheritance, not for this. Or maybe not. Or maybe given the or maybe the fact is he is acquiring it in order to be able to shave his head. He needs sacrifices there first. And we should say that it does go under those laws of inheritance as well. And he does get the double portion. Now I noticed, I'm translating this from my understanding of Taisvus. I noticed in the Mefarish here that he explains it. After the animals are sacrificed, and this part of the animal that's supposed to be eaten, the question over here is, do the brothers then divide the portions of meat based on the firstborn getting the double portion and the other one getting just the 1/3? After the process, like what happens with that remainder? But that's an interesting question that's coming in. Okay, so the Gemara concludes with a few more questions. Aviv Nazir Olam, V'hu Nazir Stam. If the father is a Nazir forever, Nazir Olam, he's allowed to shave his hair, I guess, once every year or something.
When they say shave, it's like shave completely bald.
No, I think over here it means he's allowed to lighten the hair. Yeah, by the Nazir Olam, he was allowed to lighten the hair once a year, according to one opinion. But the father was this Nazir Olam. He was a Nazir forever. But he would bring, I think when they would lighten the hair, they would bring sacrifices. So he would designate this money, and he passed away. And the child is a Nazir Stam, just a 30-day Nazir. So Aviv Nazir Stam, V'hu Nazir Olam, let's say it's the opposite. The father was a Nazir for 30 days, and he designated the money, and the child is a Nazir Olam. What's the rule now? Ki Gamrina and Hilchasa B'stam Naziris. We're asking, what was exactly the tradition? Was it only by when Naziris that it was the same Stam Naziris or Stam that they were both regular Nazir, Or maybe there's no difference. Or maybe it applies to both. Thank you. And if you're going to say that maybe it does apply, because both of these are regular conclusions of Nazirus. But the Nazir Elam is not really a conclusion, but it's like a shaving of the head sacrifice. That comes along with the shaving of the head. Boy Ravashi, but Ravashi has a question. Aviv Nazir Tami, Vu Nazir Tar. What would happen if the father designated sacrifices because he was impure, which is a different sort of sacrifice? There's 2 birds and an animal as opposed to 3 animals. And or Aviv Nazir Tar, Vu Nazir Tami, and the child is it's the opposite now. And the child is the Nazir Tami. But what he's going to do is he's just going to take the money and he'll buy with it the animal and the birds. Can he do that switching as well? We're asking what is the tradition here. So we don't know what the answer is, and Teku. We leave this as a question. Angelach Mishamer. Designated animals are a problem because the chatas needs to go into the sea or to be put to death. Or even if the money was designated specifically for the chatas, and then the oila would have to be brought as an oila, just as an oila in the shlamim, as a shlamim. I don't think the child could use those. Here it was just designated but unspecified. I think that's how it works. Okay. We have a new parak. It goes like this. Beishamai Yomrim Hektish Tzoyis Hektish. Beishamai says that if there's a mistake, if someone consecrates something, doesn't matter. Still becomes Hektish. We'll see 3 examples in a moment. Beisil remain Hektish. Beisil says no, the mistake doesn't become consecrated. And we've had things like this before where we just say, okay, it was a mistake, and then we say that whatever the item is not consecrated. Ketzad. What's an example for this? Amar, if he says Shachar Shiyatsumi Beisi Rishon Hareo Hektish. Reminds me of the story with Yiftach. It says the first ox, the first black Shachar is black, right?
Yeah.
Black ox that leaves my house is going to be consecrated, but a white ox left. So Beishamai says hektish. Beishamai says it's hektish. Beisil remain a hektish. Beisil says it's not. Okay, now, this is very confusing because Beishamai says hektish. What is hektish? The white one, or the second one that goes out, which was the black one? So the Gemara is going to discuss this, and it's going to take different approaches to it. Go back and forth. The vagueness of the ambiguity of what Beishamai means is going to create some serious complications in the Gemara about what really is Beishamai's opinion. Okay, now we have some new examples here. Dinar Zav, Shiala Biyadi Rishon, the first gold coin that comes up in my hand, Hareo Hektish, Vala Shel Kesef, but what came up in his hand was a silver coin. Well, Beishamai Amrim Hektish, Beisil remain a Hektish. I'm not explaining much because the Gemara is going to have to discuss how this works, and there's going to be a few approaches. The first barrel of wine that comes into my hand, Hareo Hektish, Valsa Shel Shemen, turned out that it was oil. Remember, we learned, I think, that he would put oil on top of wine to seal it off. I think we learned that. They would have barrels of wine, and I think because the air was not good for the wine, I think they would keep oil on top of it. And that was that story with someone that invited guests. Remember that? He thought he had food for them, and it turned out it was really wine. It wasn't food. The oil would have been food, but it was really just a layer of oil on the top. That was a story in the Gemara. Okay. So also Shel Shemen, it turned out that it wasn't really it wasn't wine, it was oil. guess he thought it was. He doesn't know what it is. He's just opening a barrel. They all look the same. Bishame Yomrim Hektish. Bishame says that it's Hektish. Bisil Yomrim Hektish. Bisil says that it's not. Okay. So what we believe here is that there's a difference between Bishame and Bisil about Hektish Tos. Tos means mistake. Hektish, consecration. Bishame says that it is Hektish. Bishame is stricter. Bisil says that it's not. Okay. It's gonna just for trivia. Yeah. The commentary on this page of Gemara turns out is 2 pages later, and it's over here on the Taisus on Daf Lamed Gimel. But I don't know if you have ever seen a Daf Gemara like this. Look at this. You ever saw a Daf Gemara like this?
No.
It's just the page. All of this is the Taisus. You see that?
So
Let me hold it up for the. Yeah, that's that page of Gemara. Commentary. So instead of usually Taisvis would just take up the whole column, but take up the whole thing because it goes when there's a piece of Gemara, they printed it that it spreads across the bottom of the page. When there's no Gemara at all, they just did it in 2 columns to make it easier on your eyes. Okay.
Easier on your eyes.
Easier on your eyes because you lose the place. I mean, easier to the long columns. So you need a card to follow where the next line is. In the Google Sheets, it like highlights it so you can see where the line is. Okay, so let's go back to this Gemara. We're going to have different attempts on what the meaning of Harehu Hektish is, or Hektish according to Beis Shammai. The Gemara explains Beis Shammai Yomrim Hektish Chula. Beis Shammai says that it's going to be Hektish, it's consecrated. My Tamar the Beis Shammai. What is the reason for Beis Shammai? Now, let's assume right now, as we begin this, that we're dealing with that the white ox that left is going to be Hektish. Now, he made a mistake because he said that it's going to be a black ox that's going to leave first, it's going to be Hektish. So that was a mistake. He really meant the white one, because the white one left first. So for some reason, we're taking first is more significant than black. He gave 2 criteria. One that leaves first, the black one that leaves first. And we're saying, oh, the black was the mistake. Really, the white one is Hektish, because that left first. So the Gemara says, what's the reason for Beis Shammai? Because we learn, we compare how Hektish begins to how Hektish ends. Now, what that means is Hektish ending is not really ending, but what it means is that after something is already Hektish, I'm not allowed to, but I could potentially exchange one carbon for another carbon, which is a violation. One carbon for another animal, it's called Tamura, and that works even when there's a mistake. Tamura works even when there's a mistake. So Beis Shammai is saying that even when you made a mistake, you wanted to say that Harezu Tamuras, this animal should be in exchange for an oila. And the words that came out was instead it was a shlamim. This should be in exchange for a shlamim. So you had 2 animals there. This should be in exchange for, instead of saying what he wanted to say, he said shlamim. It actually becomes a tamura of a shlamim. So even though he made a mistake, but we still accept it as consecrated. Well, Beis Shammai says, well, if that works, Seif Hektish, after it's already been consecrated, and now we're just dealing with what happens from that in this exchange. So same thing will apply to Tchilas Hektish, to making it Hektish in the first place, that if you make a mistake, it should be Hektish. Ma Tmura afilu b'tos, af Hektish afilu b'tos. Just like Tmura, even if it's a mistake, it's going to be Hektish. So too, when you make it Hektish, even if it's a mistake, it's going to be Hektish. So for some reason, we're just accepting that the black was a mistake, and the first was the coming out first, but that was correct. And so therefore, the white ox that came out first is going to be Hektish. Beisilal, Aimer and Beisilal say, Hani mili Tmura. When do I say a mistake? is going to be considered hektish. That's by Tmura, because I already started with the hektish. And now I'm just extending it over to another animal. Aval achusi hektish betos. Achusi means like bring it down into. But to bring hektish on it with a mistake, that we don't, you can't start it with a mistake. Once it's there, you can say, even if it's a mistake, we can spread it over to another one. But to create a new hektish out of a mistake, based on a mistake, that's not going to happen. Gemara asks, L'bishamai, ma'ilu amar harezu tachazel achatz yayin. It's sort of like a sarcastic question the Gemara is dealing with. It's like, what are you even thinking? Like, it's like, let's say someone said that this ox should be exchanged for this shlamim at noontime. Do we say that it's exchanged for shlamim right now? See, over there, in the case that we were saying that if there's a mistake, we said that it's hektish. There was a mistake. Yes, there was a mistake. But the fact is, we're following exactly what he said. Over here, it's a mistake, and we're trying to follow not what he says. So the way the Gemara brings this out is, what are you just going to ignore what he says? If he would say that it should be hektish in the afternoon, are you just going to say that, okay, that's a mistake and it's hektish now? See, the fact is, he said it had to be a black ox. And you're just saying, just ignore that because it's a mistake. But your example for doing that was Tmura, where we weren't ignoring what he said. We were ignoring what he thought. But we're saying that what he says is concrete. That has to be accepted. Right.
Coin onto the tent. So what happens, for example, if the white ox goes first and then the black ox goes first, then
One of them is going to be first.
No, but I'm saying, let's say the black one goes first and then the white one goes second.
Then it's clear that the black one, it's exactly what he said, that would be consecrated.
No, but
The opposite. So, okay. So when that happens, so Bishame says that it's hektish. The white one is hektish. The first one. And Basil says that it's not hektish. None of them are hektish. So that's what we're holding in our thought process right now. So we're asking, why, according to Bishame, is it hektish when he said it's supposed to be the black one? So we compared it to Tmura, where a person that said the wrong thing, we say that it's hektish. So here too, he said the wrong thing. We're asking back on that answer, that over there we were following what he said, his words. Over here, we're not even following his words. Hachinami l'chi megalia milsa. I'm sorry, I skipped the line. Over there, you would have to wait for noontime for it to be Tamura, because that's what he said. Here also, we'll have to wait for a black ox to come out first, which it didn't. So then forget it. That's the suggestion. When it's going to happen, then that's going to happen. Otherwise, nothing's hektish, which is basically the opinion of Basil. So Amar Rav Papa comes along and says, he switches the whole story here. Rav Papa says, we're not talking about the white ox becoming hektish. We're saying that the white ox is not hektish. It wasn't black. I know it came out first. What he meant to say is that the first black one that comes out is going to be hektish. Not the first one that's black, the first black one.
How does that advance
The argument.
the argument?
So according to Rav Papa, the Gemara is going to think that the whole discussion about hektish toas just like falls out the window, because we started off saying that there's a machlekes Beis Shammai and Basil about a mistaken hektish. Comes along Rav Papa and it starts to explain the machlekes that has nothing to do with the mistake. It's how to translate when someone says the first ox the black ox that comes out first should be hektish. Does he mean the first one, I don't care which number it is, but as long as it's the first black one, is hektish, that would be Beis Shammai, but it doesn't have to do with a mistake. Okay, let's see. Amar of Papa, we'll just read. Papa says, L'kach nama rishon, l'kashiyetz rishon. What he said first means that when it will go out first. That means not that it has to be the very first one, but it has to be the first of the black ones that go out. Gemara says, V'hashar shachar ka'amar. But he said, the black ox, or maybe it means the black ox. Mila yaskinin d'leslei alahai. Are we not talking that he only has one black ox? I don't know why the Gemara thinks that. For some reason, the Gemara thinks that the way the wording of this sounds like he only has one black ox. So how could it be the first of the black oxes? The Gemara says, that he has two or three of them. And so therefore, there is a first of the black oxes that come out. Gemara says a Beis Hillel. What does Beis Hillel say? Why did the person say that it comes first out of my house? Should have said that comes out. I don't even know what the translation is, how to differentiate that. Do they emphasize over here what the new translation is? Barishan? The first black bull that will emerge from my house. Since he did not say this, he must have meant the black bull should be consecrated only if it's the first bull of any kind to emerge. But what's switching over here? What did he say at the beginning? Mishnah says, a black bull that will emerge from my house first is consecrated. And what should he have said? The first black bull that will emerge from my house, instead of saying a black bull that will emerge from my house first. You should have switched it by saying the first black bull. It's not exactly the translation of the Gemara, but it fits in context.
So if this wasn't hektish, it was just a matana.
Yeah.
And once you call it a taos, then it nullifies it, right?
Yeah.
So this is a special halacha about hektish.
Uh-huh.
Right? Trying to understand what's going on here.
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's specific to hektish, at least because we have different translations. At the beginning, it would have been specific by hektish because we're comparing it to Tamura. Right now, in Rav Papa's reading of this, it doesn't have to do with hektish taos. It has to do with how to read the words. Amalei Rava mibarnish l'Ravashi. Rava mibarnish says to Ravashi, it's much later Rava. It's not the same Rava that we usually have. He says to Ravashi, I think we have a Gemara that says Kishemes Rava Nilad Ravashi. I think when Rava died, Ravashi was born. So this is a later Rava. He says, Hi hektish b'tosu, hektish b'kavanahu. If according to you, this is not a mistake. This is exactly what he said. He said the first black bull that will emerge is hektish. Ravashi explains, Mishum da'ati l'diburi kama. Or Mishum da'ati l'diburi. Because what he meant is not that it's a mistake, but there could be a mistake in translating what he meant. But not that there's a mistake here. It's not a real mistake. But because we could have thought that he meant the white ox should be hektish, it turns out that he meant that. So because you could think that this is a mistake going on, so we called it a mistake. Gemara says, okay, now to summarize what Rav Papa just did here, is he said, what's going to be with an actual mistake according to Beis Shammai? We just got out of that scenario. Got out of that discussion by changing the case. But what would be if there was actually a mistake? Then everyone would agree that it's not hektish, just like Beis Hillel. So he did away with that machlekes we thought we had. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, if there's a mistake in hektish, is it considered hektish? Beis Shammai says yes. Rav Papa says that that's not what they're arguing about. So what would everyone hold according to Rav Papa? That hektish tos, a mistaken hektish, is not hektish. So the Gemara says, okay, Sabri Beishamai, Shammai holds according to Rav Papa, hektish betos lehavi hektish. That hektish betos is not hektish vatanan, but look at this Mishnah. Mishnah ben Nazir, someone that took a vow that he's going to be a Nazir. Benishal lachachamim. He says, I really regret this. He goes to the sages to get it annulled. V'tiru, and they annulled it for him. But he had an animal that was designated for his sacrifices. So the rule is, you let it go out and graze in the barn. It's a regular mundane animal, even though he does, because the whole thing was a mistake. Why is it a mistake? Well, he got it annulled. Now, the process of annulling is by saying that had you have known, you wouldn't have done this, which basically is the foundation of annulment is that we considered that a mistake to be nothing. Okay, you made a mistake. Okay, fine, we'll take it off. That's the basis of the annulment. He uproots it from the beginning. Very good. Yeah, exactly. Right. That would be a difference between the husband and if a chacham does. Amr Beisil Beishamai. At the end of that case, Beisil has a discussion with Beishamai. It says, don't you see what's going on? It's a hektish tos, it's a mistake. And the rule is that it's nothing. So Beisil is responding to Beishamai. Why is Beisil responding to Beishamai? Because Beisil understands that Beishamai holds hektish tos is something. Beisil is saying, see, hektish tos is nothing. Mechlal the Sabri Beishamai hektish tos havi hektish. Why else would Beisil be responding to Beishamai like that? So what is Rav Papa explaining that there's no machlokes about hektish tos? We have a brisa, maybe it's a Mishnah that says that Beisil and Beishamai are discussing hektish tos. There's this response from Beisil to Beishamai. Ella Beisil, the Gemara says, according to Rav Papa, Ella Beisil hu the katoi. Beisil is making a mistake here. Sabri tamai the Beishamai mishum the hektish betos so abi hektish. Ramlu Beishamai la mishum hektish betos so mishum datali the burikam. Beisil thinks that the reason of our Mishnah is because by shachar shesem beis rishon that's because Beishamai holds that hektish tos is hektish. But Beishamai responds, that's not what I was thinking. I said that it's considered hektish because of what Rav Papa says. Papa wasn't around yet, but I said it because of Rav Papa's explanation that it has to do with the first black bull that emerges, not the first that emerges black bull. The first black bull that emerges. That's why I said it's hektish. So Beishamai is now telling Beisil what they really thought. Beisil was responding to them thinking that Beishamai meant something else. The Gemara tries to do this again. Yeah.
That kind of isn't based on like always repeat what thought the person meant before the argument.
Very good. You see, if you notice, the Mishnah here says, Beishamai says hektish tos. The Mishnah starts off with Beishamai speaking first. Then it says Beisil. Now that's actually Beisil presenting it. Beisil says, Beishamai says this, and we say that. So when you'll always see that. And Beisil is fine with Beishamai going first. That's like their humility that they'll let the other one. So I think that's how it works. So Umar tries to ask this question again. Sabri Beishamai hektish tos la yavi hektish. According to Rav Papa, hektish betos is not hektish. Tashema, come and listen. Hayum mahalkim aderech. People walking on the road. Ve'echad b'kenegdan, and there's someone that's walking in the opposite direction towards them. V'amar echad, one of them says, Hareini Nazir shezeh ploini. I'm going to be a Nazir if that person is the guy that I know, so and so. Ve'echad amar, Hareini Nazir shein zeh ploini. Other one says, I'll be a Nazir that it's not him. You know, they're saying this is like they're betting each other. Harini Nazir shechen mikem Nazir. I'll be a Nazir if one of those people walking is a Nazir. Or shein echen mikem Nazir. I'll be a Nazir if one of them is not a Nazir. He thinks they're all Nazirim. Sheshnechem Nazirim, that they're both Nazirim. Shekulchem Nazirim, that they're all Nazirim. let's say someone says this and it turns out that it's not accurate. Bishami Yemrim Kulam Nazirim. Bishami say that they're all Nazirim, that everyone that said this, even though there was a mistake there, see, Bishami holds that even if it's a mistake, there's still a Nazir, which is just like Hektish, becomes Hektish. See, very clear that this is Bishami's opinion. The Gemara answers, Amri, they say like this. Sabri Bishami Hektish Betos Havi Hektish. You're right. Bishami actually holds that, and you have a very good proof from the case that you just brought. However, Hachalai, but over here, from our back to our Mishnah, when we spoke about the first black bull that leaves the property is going to be Hektish, from there I can still explain that, like Rav Papa, that it doesn't have to do with Bishami's view of Hektish Tos, it has to do with how we're going to translate the words of the first black bull. So in other words, from our Mishnah, I don't have a proof for that. Rav Papa's explanation could still be accurate, even though I do know that there is another machlaikas about Hektish Tos between Bishami and Beisel. Let's leave it over here by Omar. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Holy stuff to everyone.
Other stuff.
Let's acknowledge the first time that we get two covered breakfast.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Are we on Amar Rapsis? Oh, okay.
See you better.
All right. Thank you.
And